Please welcome to the stage Dr. Greg Witkop.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Greg Witkop. I'm a program manager in the Defense Sciences Office, and one of the great privileges of being a program manager in the Defense Science Office is we get to ask basic science questions that are mission informed. And for me, the basic science question has fascinated me for 28 years since I was a residency in ophthalmology, is how the brain constructs our experience. There's a condition known as blind sight, and in that condition, the visual pathways are intact. However, the brain itself does not interpret the information that it receives, and all the patient sees is darkness. Today, I'm going to talk about a different kind of darkness, and I welcome and invite your thoughts on how we can deal with this, dealing with specifically the invisible wounds of war. So while the wounds are invisible, we know the consequences are all too apparent. Over 7,000 active duty soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice. 4 times that number have killed themselves since the wars began 2 decades ago. And active duty soldiers are still killing themselves. And the question becomes, what can we do here to help solve this problem? I think it's particularly appropriate this great institution, our host institution, where they invented the concept of the 12th man. And their student center is dedicated to Aggies who've given the ultimate sacrifice. And they commission more officers into ROTC officers than any other institution in America. So what can we do to heal these wounds? It's important to understand our current limitations are that of subjective description. This recent article from Harvard captured the issues that are involved, these constructs of suicidality. And we can say that, yes, we know people have hopelessness and helplessness and lack of belonging. But as this article rightly pointed out, we will never be able to predict or prevent suicide until we can move from subjective descriptions to objective mechanisms. Now, the good news is, recent advances in neuroimaging and neuroscience have given us completely new ways to see. This image here is not some artist rendition. This is from the Human Connectome Project looking at diffuse tensor imaging that gives us incredible detail of the tracks of the brain, and the colors actually reflect directionality of information flow. So we can see better than we've ever been able to see. And as in all areas of science, if we can see, then we have the potential to understand, and if we have new ways of understanding, we have the potential to transform. So the question is, how can we use this new ability to transform? And again, we have models that have been developed. I'm not going to do a deep dive into the neuroscience of this because we just don't have time this morning, but I'd be happy to chat about it later. But I mentioned initially the condition of blind sight, and there's a specific portion of the brain that's responsible for that interpretation of vision. We now know that there are a network of network systems consisting of this default mode network, the salience network, the central executive or cognitive executive network, responsible for the subjective experience. So if Descartes were alive today, he would say, I have a default mode network, therefore I am. And that's only a little bit facetious. So the question is, we can see better, we have better models, but can we really apply this to the wounds of war? Well, again, researchers have been doing outstanding work and have shown, particularly in post-traumatic stress syndrome, that trauma damages the brain. It damages the connectivity between these networks and also the functioning of the networks themselves, and leads to the symptoms that are associated with post-traumatic stress syndrome. To just kind of walk you through an example, if all of us tonight, we go home, we hear a plate drop, hopefully our salience network would detect that, and it would alert us to kind of a startle response. Our central executive network would say, hey, that's just a plate, no worries, go back to playing chess, reading a novel, talking with your spouse. But if someone suffered from PTSD, that central executive network, because it has decreased activity, may not be able to identify that as a plate and may mistake it as a completely different object. Perhaps it's a howitzer. Maybe the intrinsic connectivity connecting to the salience network doesn't work, and so it's not able to shut off. So instead of this little startle response that you and I have, instead they would have a prolonged fight or flight response. And so the real question that I have for all of us today is, can we repair these networks? Can we optimize the brain to heal the mind? So I'm pleased to announce DARPA just released a BAA yesterday addressing this exact topic, and I'd be happy to talk with you about it at the break. But more importantly, the great part about my job is I get to find the smartest people in the world and hopefully ask good questions that make huge impacts. And so I'm here today to do just that, to ask any of you who are willing to do the hard work to make these invisible wounds visible, so that as a surgeon, we can now see these wounds and we can heal them. Thank you very much.